Hello and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rosemary Teege, Claris Community Engagement Manager, and your host for today's Under the Hood with Claris Engineering webinar. The team has prepared their insights and some demonstrations to highlight the key areas of the FileMaker 2023 release. We have an action-packed session, so let's get started. And now it's my pleasure to hand the presentation over to Lucy Chen, Vice President of FileMaker Platform Engineering.
Thank you, Rosemary. I'm very excited to take you under the hood for FileMaker 2023. The last release was 19.6. This release, FileMaker 2023, is version FileMaker 20.1 under the hood. The latest upgrade is 20.1.2. We continued to enhance and fix the bugs from your requests. Thank you for your support and all the great feedback. Our release note documented a lot of bug fixes. So keep sending your requests to us. We will take care of them for you. Today, FileMaker Engineering team, Clay, Jackie, James, Zhenghan, Derek, and Wade will talk about FileMaker 2023 features with demos. Connor and Masao will cover all the questions online. Here are some of the highlights. In addition to Mac, Windows, Ubuntu 20, FileMaker Server now runs on Ubuntu 22 for Intel and ARM64. FileMaker Server ARM64 is Ubuntu 22 only. Hosting FileMaker Server on ARM64 is fast and the cost is lower. Furthermore, we added external authentication with Active Directory that can help you to migrate to Ubuntu easier. Following the script transaction in 19.6, we have added on-window transaction script trigger. Developers like you can define custom business logic like audit log, sync, and a lot more from transaction. Clay will go through the details for on-window transaction script trigger. Data integrity is our top priority. We have a preview feature, persistent cache, and quick server restart. Persistent cache protects your FileMaker files from corrupting, minimize transaction loss in situations like abnormal server termination, force kill, or power loss. Your database is kept in a consistent state with persistent cache. Then, admin can quickly start up server again. Quick restart will help your FileMaker application go back online with very little downtime. Persistent cache is a preview feature now. You have suggestions or feedbacks, please let us know. Our server architect Wade will cover that later today. For WebD, we upgraded to Java 17. James Parker, our senior software QA engineer, will demo Java garbage collection with FileMaker schedule. We also fixed the list view and greatly improved the scalability of WebD. You can use Nginx as a load balancer with secondary machines on bare metal virtual machine or Docker containers of your choice. Our lab testing have reached 1,000 WebD concurrent users with Nginx Plus as a load balancer and secondary servers on Docker containers. Jackie, our senior software engineer, will demo that today. In addition to SMTP email basic authentication, we added SendMail on OAuth 2 with Office 365 and Google Workspace. Both SendMail script step and FileMaker Admin Console support server-to-server OAuth 2 authentication for Office 365 and Gmail. Zhenghan, our senior software engineer, will talk about these. psource is a popular tool for FileMaker Pro to execute script on server script engine. For FileMaker 2023, we enhanced psource with async execution and completion script callback. The callback will invoke your completion script when psource is done. We also have extended native support for PDF thumbnails on Windows and Ubuntu. You can now see higher resolution thumbnails consistently across the platform. For security, we have upgraded the platform to use OpenSSL 3.0.8 for Mac, Windows, and Ubuntu 22. A note here, on Ubuntu 20, it is still OpenSSL 1.1.1. It is time to upgrade. For XDBC, we have upgraded the X509 signature algorithm to SHA-256 from MD5. In FileMaker 2023 release, we focused on supporting partners and developers like you. To help our developers to troubleshoot, we have separated the log message generated by FileMaker script engine from the event log. We know as developers, you love the feature that captures the script error on FileMaker Pro. Now it is available for you to debug script running in Server script engine. Once the problem has been solved, in other words, when you don't need to troubleshoot anymore, the admin can turn off the error capture setting in FileMaker admin console. Derek, our software engineer, will cover that in more details. For Server, we now support up to 256 database files and extended schedule name length from 32 characters to 100 characters. Next, let's invite Clay, FileMaker Chief Architect, to talk about on-window transaction and a lot more FileMaker Pro features. Clay?
Thank you, Lucy. I'm Clay Mackel. I joined Apple in 1986 to work on Mac Terminal and then was the 15th Claris employee hired a year later. In 1989, I started working with a Neshoba FileMaker engineer to help finish the Windows 2 and OS 2 versions of FileMaker, which never shipped. Eventually, Windows 3.0 came out and FileMaker was finally multi-platform. Let's head on to on-window transaction. After the sessions ended one night at last year's Pause on Errors 2022 FileMaker Summer Camp, a couple of attendees and I started discussing auditing in FileMaker. I was mentioning that much like data syncing, there really isn't one way we could do it that would satisfy the diverse workflows that all of you have. I prefer to add more basic general tools that others can build upon to create their custom solutions that exactly meet their needs. The Draco engine really doesn't have the concept of context-free stored procedures, but it does have script triggers. Our little group discussed what the trigger would be like, the input and output parameters for it, and what other helpful calculation functions or script steps that could be added. Late that night, I created a rough prototype and showed it the next morning to a larger group and got quite a bit of positive feedback. It was finished and shipped in FileMaker 2023 with the help of the new agile software development cycle Claris is using. The starting point for on-window transaction can be found in the Script Triggers panel of the File Options dialog. You'll see the new script trigger at the end of the list of triggers and the configurations options under that. This trigger works on all windows in the file and all the data that is accessed by that window, no matter which file that data may be in. Note that each window has a transaction object that the Draco engine uses to keep track of the changes that may be committed or reverted later. This is the same transaction object that is used by the user-initiated enter, commit, revert record actions, the open, commit, revert record requests script steps, and also the recently added open, commit, revert transaction script steps. The work that was done for these new transaction script steps also helped with the implementation of the on-window transaction. In the next 3 slides, I'll go over what I think are the 3 big pieces of this feature. There's the field name that you define so that you can customize the information that you want from each record that is part of the transaction. Second is the script that you pick to run that will receive and save this information. And lastly, we'll talk about the contents of the parameter that gets sent to the triggered script. So part 1. The field you define for the trigger. The default field name for the trigger is also named on-window transaction, but you can change the name to match whatever naming convention you use. This field has to have the same name in every table, even if they're in different files. There is strict field name matching. There is no magic automatic renaming if you only change one. The field can be of any type, but for auditing purposes, it will most likely be a calculation. A stored calculation will always be faster, but there are more interesting things that can be done if it's unstored. I've actually been using a pattern where I add both a stored and unstored calc to each table. The stored calc computes information I want to have that happens at editing time, and the unstored calc then references that stored calc and the information it needs at commit time to generate the results for the trigger. You don't want unstored calculations to be too complex or take too long to execute, since the contents of the field is being fetched for every record changed in the transaction, and this is actually happening during the actual commit operation. So really, you should not use execute SQL or plugin functions that do massive amount of work in these unstored calculations. In this example on the slide, it's returning data in a JSON format, but it doesn't have to. You may want to return XML, comma-separated values, or even just a block of text. The calc function getBaseTableName is one of the many new functions that deal with the base table names, as opposed to table occurrence names that are mainly used throughout FileMaker today. Transactions really only deal with base tables and know nothing about what a table occurrence is pointing to them. There are also new values coming from older calc functions like getRecordOpenState that returns 3 for a record that has been deleted. Let's go to part 2, the script that is triggered. When a transaction is committed, the records that are changed are iterated over and the triggers calcs are called for each one. These results are put into a JSON object that becomes the script parameter for the script that was also defined by the trigger. The triggered script is not run immediately at the commit point. It is queued to run later at the next available point, much like the on-timer scripts or scripts that are triggered by the FMP URL protocol. So the context that the script is running in may not be the context where the data was changed. You'll have to make sure that the operations you are doing do not depend on what layout or found set exists. Also, if your triggered script is running in a file that has onTransaction window defined, and you make modifications to a table, that you will get into an infinite loop, as each triggered script will trigger yet another trigger script. Our blogs example writes the data out to a text file. Other testers have created dedicated audit files that do not have this trigger defined. And even more have used insert from URL to send the data off to cloud-based microservices that may handle the results from multiple files and servers. In this example on the slide, my auditing calcs will not generate a result for tables that I do not want to log, so I check for the empty results to make sure I don't go recursive. For the context issue, I create a new hidden window to create a new record audit entry, and then I close that window to get rid of that context. FileMaker 20.1 v1 has a bug that prevents the close window script step from working, so in this case, make sure you update to version 20.1 v2. Psst. In a later release of FileMaker 2023 this year, we'll have a new scripting support that will help solve this context problem for doing write operations into FileMaker. Stay tuned. Part 3, we'll take a look at the JSON result. The script above really doesn't change the JSON structure of the script parameter sent to it. The script could transform that object into any other format it wants, but in this example, I just save what the script parameter contains into the new record. The outermost JSON object are a list with the file names of the tables, followed by an embedded list of base table names containing arrays of records that were modified in that table. The array of records contain yet another array of 3 objects. The first is the type of operation that happened to that record, new, modified, or deleted. The second is the FileMaker internal record ID, and the third is the results of fetching the field that was defined for that script trigger. Key tip: if the contents of the field fetched contains a JSON array or object with no leading or trailing whitespace, then the contents will just be merged into the overall JSON object. Otherwise, it will be stored as a JSON string with all the JSON escaping rules applied to it. Now let's talk about some other features that were added to FileMaker 2023. In FileMaker 2023, we've added the new script step that asynchronously runs the script on the server, but you also supply a script to be run on the client after that script on the server completes. The script parameter for the script that is run on the client contains the script results of the script that was run on the server. The script is queued and executed much like the on-window transaction and on-timer script. And again, the context of the script is undefined. Maybe we should call this new script step PSOSC. PSOSC? Yeah, come up with your new name. For the next 2 features, we have been moving more functionality that only worked on Apple devices onto other platforms, both the PDF thumbnail generation and QR code decoding. We've now included third-party open source code that we can do these operations with on both Windows and Ubuntu. We are always working to try to bring parity between the different platforms. And lastly, there's a new script step to help one-trigger Claris Connect flows. This can already be done with the insert from URL script step, and there have been many blogs written up with the steps to how to do it. But now you just have to specify 3 things with this new script step. The URL that you can copy from the Claris Connect web page displaying the connector you want to call, the JSON payload that you want to send, and a location to save the JSON results that are returned. Future versions of the script step will remove the copy-paste step and eventually will help with payload packaging. Our goal for this and future releases is to integrate the FileMaker clients more tightly with other Claris products. Next, we're going to go on to Jackie on the topic of Docker support.
Hello, everyone. We introduced Docker support back in the FileMaker 19.6. In FileMaker 2023, we update our Docker script to support Ubuntu 22.04 on both ARM64 and AMD 64. And we still support Docker on Ubuntu 20, but AMD 64 only. With Docker, you can have multiple containers in one Linux box. When you install FileMaker Server on Linux box, the script is in the installation directory under Tools, Docker, FMS Docker installer. What does the script do? The script will first check if the host machine have a Docker installed. If not, it will install it. It will get the base Ubuntu 22.04 package, Docker image, and based on the host machine, it will pick either ARM64 or AMD. It will do the initial setup. It will create a Docker network if it needs to, and it calls Docker run. Docker run will create a Docker container, do a network setup, network binding, and install FileMaker Server. It also installed the certificate if you have it. It connects the secondary server to a primary machine if you're installing a secondary servers. And if you're deploying multiple containers, it will repeat the step basically. When working with a Docker container, we provide 2 network options, the bridge network and MAC VLAN network. Using bridge, the container will share network with the host. So it can access the same network interface and IP address as the host. If you only need one container in the host machine, then you can use bridge network. If you're deploying multiple container and you don't want to have a conflict with the host machine, then the bridge network doesn't work. You need to have a MAC VLAN network. You need to use MAC VLAN network. So with MAC VLAN, every containers will have its own IP address. You need to specify this IP when running the script. It will prompt you. So what's the script for? If you manage FileMaker Server deployment, multiple FileMaker Server deployment, and familiar with how Docker container works, the script can help you automate things faster and easier and more manageable. In this demo, we will run the Docker script. I have FileMaker Server installed on Ubuntu 22 machine. This is the FileMaker Server installation directory, and under Tools, Docker, you see the script, and I copy the whole folder and then put it in my other Docker host machine. And here I put my FileMaker Server Debian package and certificate files as well. And I will run FMS Docker installer. I will run the script. In this example, I only want to create one secondary container. Do you want to create a primary container? No. 0 for no. And what's the IP address of the primary machine? You can put IP address or a fully qualified domain name for the primary server. And how many secondary containers do you want to create? Just one. And do you want to create MAC VLAN network? Yes. And here you specify the IP address for the secondary. If you create multiple secondary containers, then you need to supply multiple IPs here. Do you want to configure the system spec? Yes, sure. Here you can specify how many core and how many memory you want to allocate for each container. In this example, I just allocate 8,000 meg, less than 8 gig, basically. Do you want to import certificate? Yes. And do you want to disable MWP routing? Yes. Since I'm going to use Nginx as a load balancer, I'm going to disable this. Do you want to turn debug mode on? That's optional. I say yes. And then you input a username, password, and your PIN number here. Running the script the very first time takes a while. So I'm going to fast forward this, and then once it's completed, we'll see you will see a container ID. And okay, so we have the container ID, and then I'm gonna run docker ps-a, which lists all the Docker on the machine. So we just create the fms-secondary1. So now if we check the admin console, we can see it's connected to the primary server. Next, I'd like to talk about WebDirect scalability and the setup. The goal here is to have a better performance and scalability and be able to run 1,000 WebDirect users concurrently. So on high-level architecture, we have Nginx on the top, acting as reverse proxy and a load balancer. Ideally, this Nginx is installed in one Linux box that is separate from FileMaker Server. You have option to install either Nginx open source or Nginx Plus. Nginx open source is free. The Nginx Plus is a paid version and is recommended because it has a better load balancing setup, especially a sticky session support. We have a utility to create Nginx configuration file based on your primary and secondary setup. We introduced this in FileMaker 19.6. We have it in our engineering blog. Please check it out. We have a primary server on the blue box that sits in the one box. Ideally, you have a good fast spec machine. We want primary server to focus on database operation. We disable WebDirect on the primary, and we move all the WebDirect processes to secondary. And on the yellow boxes in the middle, we have a cluster of secondary servers. The secondary server handles all the WebDirect process. The secondary server can also be inside a Docker container. So when a new WebDirect session comes in, Nginx will redirect to available secondary server. If one of the secondary server is down or slow, the load balancer will redirect the new session to a faster secondary server. The rule of thumb here is to start with 100 users for each secondary server. So if you're deploying 1,000 WebD users, you can start with 10 secondary servers, and then you can adjust up and down based on your business needs. You can use Docker container and then run multiple secondary containers in one box. Let's see a quick demo of load testing with 1,000 concurrent users. The setup here is the same like the diagram on the previous slide. We have Nginx Plus load balancer, we have primary server, and 10 secondaries. We start with 0 connections, and we have 3 databases. And here, you notice that we disable the WebDirect on the primary server. And you notice that we have 10 secondaries, and some of the secondaries are Docker container. You can do mix and match here for the secondaries. And now we run automation to simulate 1,000 WebDirect connections. You will see the automation ramping up. These 1,000 connections will do random database action like create, update, delete query. It performs scripts. Now that we hit 1,000, you can see how connections are distributed among secondary server. The number of connections is not always even among the secondary, depends on the load balancing. And we also noticed that once we hit 1,000, we open a new WebDirect client, and then we do extra things like query update and our test, and we noticed that clients are still responsive. So to quick recap, you can model your setup like this to support a large number of WebDirect users. Next, I'll hand it to James. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. The first topic I want to touch on today is FileMaker Server 2023 support for Java 17. Previously, we recommended installing the JRE for the supported Java version, but now with FileMaker Server 2023, we recommend using the JDK. The Java 17 JDK allows the new Java garbage collection feature to work, which I will touch on shortly. Quickly, I want to go through some possible scenarios that FileMaker Server admins may encounter when installing FileMaker Server 2023. If FileMaker Server 2023 is being installed on a clean macOS or Windows machine, then when going through the process of enabling the web publishing engine in the admin console, the Use Java Development Kit dialog will be presented. The steps in the dialog will guide the admin through downloading the Java 17 JDK from Adoptium and uploading it into the FileMaker Server folder. If you prefer to install Java into the system, then Googling the terms FileMaker Server 2023 and Java 17 will provide a knowledge base article with detailed instructions on how to manually install the Java 17 JDK and configure the Java home variable. For machines that have a previous version of FileMaker Server installed, upgrading to FileMaker Server 2023 will require Java to be upgraded. We have created an engineering blog with detailed steps on upgrading to Java 17 based on how Java was originally installed and configured in the previous version of FileMaker Server. In general, if the Java had been previously located in the FileMaker Server folder, then when attempting to enable the web publishing engine in the FileMaker Server 2023 admin console, you will be presented the Use Java Kit development dialog to complete the upgrade to Java 17. However, if the Java had been installed into the system, then the Use Java Development Kit dialog will not be presented, and attempting to enable the web publishing engine in the FileMaker Server 2023 admin console. Additional steps to download and manually install the Java 17 JDK will need to be completed. It is important to note that Ubuntu installers for FileMaker Server 2023 will take care of installing Java 17 JDK, so no action should be needed by the FileMaker Server admins. Now that Java 17 JDK is installed, what new can you do with it? In FileMaker Server 2023, we have a new feature that allows you to force Java garbage collection to occur. WebDirect relies on the Java process for how the UI renders to the user and how it behaves as the users interact with objects on the layout. Some FileMaker solutions are built and used in a way that can cause the Java process to use a large amount of memory. As the solution is used by more WebDirect sessions over time, the Java memory usage may grow and grow, which can limit resources from other processes. Java garbage collection occurs automatically, but may not occur as soon as memory is available to be reclaimed. With the new Java garbage collection system scripts, you can run the script manually or create schedules that can free up memory immediately. Schedules can be created for the primary machine as well as for any secondary machines in your FileMaker Server deployment. Let's look at a quick demo. I have automation running that connects new WebDirect clients to solutions that heavily use the Java process. As you watch the number of connections grow, you will see the Java memory usage also grows to above 4 gigabytes. In the admin console on the connector's web publishing page, we have a button to manually run garbage collection. After it runs, you will see the memory usage decrease to around 2 gigabytes quite quickly. Let's run the same scenario again, but this time we will create a schedule script to run on the primary machine. I am setting it up to run once every hour since my WebDirect clients are working the Java process pretty hard. You will notice while I'm setting up the schedule, the Java memory usage does decrease from its peak, but there's still some memory that can be reclaimed by running the Java garbage collection system script. For the demonstration, I'm going to run the schedule on demand, and we can see the Java memory usage decrease as soon as the schedule is complete. As mentioned previously, you can create a schedule that will run the Java garbage collection on secondary machines in your FileMaker Server deployment as well. There is an additional system script available specifically for secondary machines. When starting your plan to implement this feature, I recommend monitoring the memory usage by the Java process on your FileMaker Server machines. Determine if the Java process seems to be using a large memory during specific times of the day, or does the Java process memory usage grow and grow throughout the day. It is possible that having the schedule run once a day would suffice, but depending on how many WebDirect clients and how much work is being asked of the Java process by each client, it may be necessary to have the schedule run multiple times during the day. From my testing, the execution time for the Java garbage collection script is very quick, and there is no impact to other FileMaker Server actions. Finally, I want to touch on list view in WebDirect. In the FileMaker Server 19.6 release, a new front-end implementation in combination with changes to the backend greatly improved the usability. In FileMaker Server 2023, we did continue with additional tweaks. Thank you for your time today. We touched on FileMaker Server 2023 support for Java 17 and reviewed the improved implementation of list view in WebDirect. Now we will have Suhan Lee discuss sending mail with OAuth 2.
Thank you, James. Hi everyone, I'm Zonghan, an engineer on Server and WebDirect team. Today I'm going to talk about send mail with OAuth. As many of you know, Microsoft and Google have deprecated the basic authentication on their SMTP servers. This has a huge impact to our customers who are sending emails with plain text authentication. In this release, we add OAuth support to send mail script step in FileMaker Solutions, as well as email notifications in FileMaker Admin Console. This allows our customers to send emails using modern OAuth authentication instead. The implementation is server-to-server authentication, also known as implicit grant flow. It requires no UI interaction during the process, so it's convenient that our customers don't need to deal with authentication dialogues while the script steps or notifications are running. The diagram on the right shows the new workflow for OAuth send mail. First, client initializes an access request along with OAuth credentials to the authorization server. Server will respond with access token if the request is granted. Otherwise, the error message from authorization server will be parsed and returned to client. Client can then use this token to access protected resources on the resource server, which is SendMail API in this case. In addition, an optimization is implemented on the client side to cache the access token for 30 minutes in case repeated script steps or notifications occur. The required steps to set up OAuth providers are minimum and simple. Let's walk through the updated user interface quickly and see how to set them up properly in FileMaker products. When you open up the UI of SendMail script step in Pro, you'll find the new option for OAuth 2.0 in the Send via dropdown. When you choose OAuth 2.0, The option dialog will pop up and you will be able to specify the provider info for authentication there. Similarly, the OAuth 2.0 option is also added to the authentication dropdown in FAC when email notification is enabled. The provider list and credential fields will show up once the option is selected, and you will be able to save provider info in those fields. And this is it. You're done with the OAuth configurations. Now, emails will be sent out automatically when the script steps or notifications are running. This is an example email you will get. It's almost identical to the emails you get from SMTP servers. The only difference is that now the email is from your OAuth provider instead. Okay, that's all about SendMail with OAuth. Next, Derek will be talking about improvements for server administrators. Thank you.
Thanks, Han. Hi, everyone. I'm Derek, and I'll be going over some of the new features and improvements we've made for server admins on the FAC and the FileMaker script engine for Claris FileMaker Server 2023. In Claris FileMaker Server 2023, we've added several new features in order to help server admins manage their FileMaker server. First, we've increased the number of hosted databases from 125 to 256 databases. You are now able to import admin groups from FileMaker Server 2016 as admin roles. We've separated FileMaker script engine log entries from event.log into a new log called script-event.log. FileMaker script engine now supports the set error logging script step, and we've also increased schedule names from 32 characters to 100 characters. Let's have a quick demo of the new features on FAC.
We've also made several improvements to the FAC for FileMaker Server 2023. First, you are now able to have a total of 256 databases on the FileMaker server. Next, schedule names can now have a maximum of 100 characters. Next, you are now able to import FileMaker Server 16 admin groups as admin roles. However, please note that before you can start using these newly imported admin roles, you will need to reset the password of each admin role.
Next, let's have a quick demo of script capture error on FileMaker script engine.
To capture script errors on the FileMaker script engine, you will first need to go to Logs, Log Settings, and enable the Allow Script Error log. Next, let's go to Pro. So under Pro, I have two scripts. The first script is Save PDF, which will first set the error logging to On, and then perform the Save Records as PDF script step. However, we expect this script step to give an error, since the FileMaker server does not have access to the Not Accessed folder. The second script performs the previous script on the server. Let's check it out. And as expected, there are errors. You will see that under the logs folder of the FileMaker server installed directory, there is now a new log called the FileMaker script engine script errors.log file. Opening it, we see the two entries that correspond to the two errors we just had. For developers, once you are done working on your script, you can disable the Allow Script Error log, and regardless of what you had set as the Set Error Logging script step, no more script errors will be written. For example, check this out. Same errors as before. And when we look at the log file, there are no new entries.
Next, please welcome Wade to talk about some preview features coming to Claris FileMaker Server 2023.
Thanks, Derek. I'm Wade. We are going to look into two preview features. The first one is FileMaker Server Persistent Cache and Quick Restart. Now, FileMaker Server Persistent Cache is to protect data in memory during server crash or abnormal exit. Admin console provides an UI option to enable persistent cache. Once the option is changed, server needs to be restarted. Another option is to sync persistent cache to disk. that will cover power loss or machine reboot. For architecture, first, in the database engine, we separate main database cache from temp database cache. Main database cache is kept in a memory map file. After server process is gone, we can recover main database from the persistent cache to prevent from database corruption. Thereafter, you can restart server and open file quickly. Each main database file will be flushed to disk independently. In the meantime, separation of caches helps cut down contentions between main files and temp files in the database engine. Let's see a quick demo. So you can see the persistent cache here. I just enable it, and also I enable the sync to disk option. The database server needs to be restarted. Now I'm going to start some stress tests, first from the FileMaker Punisher. Then with the PSR. So FileMaker Server is busy. You can see both FM Server D and the CC are quite busy right now. So I'm going to let the stress test running, and I'm going to do something dangerous. I'm going to unplug the power from my Mac Studio to test the persistent cache feature. Now the power is off. So now I connect it back. Now server is back. Let's check the event logs. It looks like every file has been opened successfully. So now I'm going to restart the stress test. First, again, start from the FileMaker Punisher, and then start the PSR. So every database have been opened successfully and running. And we can check the FM Server D and the script engine again on activity mode. That's it for my demo. And however, here I unplug the power just for demo purpose to test the feature. I don't recommend it. I would suggest you protect it with UBS. Now let's take a look at the second feature. The next feature is FileMaker Server on Ubuntu with external authentication. To help migrate server on Windows platform, we provide external authentication with Microsoft Active Directory for FileMaker Server on Ubuntu. You just need to input Active Directory domain control address, entry point, and TLS option on admin console for FileMaker Server to connect to. No need to join Ubuntu as a member machine to the Active Directory. LDAP APIs are used to authenticate and get membership of users. Let's see a quick demo. Okay, let's go to the external authentication part. You can see the database user external server account and the external account for admin console are the same as Windows, and both are enabled now. And there is a new section called Directory Service Setting. I enter my domain control address and entry point. Also, I enable the TLS option. I highly recommend you turn on the TLS option. And once you pick the option, the default port 636 will be populated automatically. Then we need to enter the group name for the admin console. Let's scroll up. So I enter my FMDev group name for the external account for admin console sign in. So the same thing for database user. You can use FileMaker Pro to specify the group for the external server, just exactly like Windows. And now I'm going to sign in with my Active Directory credential to the FileMaker database. Here you go. Same thing for the admin console. Okay, it works. So that's it for my demo. Thank you very much for viewing. I'm going to send it back to Rosemary for Q&A. Thanks again and enjoy the show.
Wow, that was a lot of great insight into the technical aspects of the FileMaker 2023 release. And now it's time to answer your questions. If you haven't done so already, please enter your questions for the team and we'll answer as many as we can in the remaining time. At the end of today's session, please take the time to complete the brief survey that will appear after WebEx closes. If you like these deep dives and you'd like to read about the more technical details of the platform, go to the Claris Engineering team blog. It's a great resource. The easiest place to find the latest entries is on the Claris community homepage. Thank you again to the team and to all of you for your questions. Hi, everyone. And again, thanks again to all the engineers for your preparation and participation in the chat Q&A and in your presentations. And also thanks to everybody who's asked great questions. We've answered a lot already, and we will publish all of this, the Q&A from this session and also from the one earlier today to the Claris community in the next couple of weeks. So that we can catch anything we missed and also add additional clarity if needed. But so first, I'm going to get started with a question for Wade. Actually, there's two questions about external authentication. The first one is the Active Directory authentication on Ubuntu that's currently a preview feature considered stable enough to use in production?
Hi. So for the feature, the reason we put on preview, actually the reason was that we complete the implementation kind of a little bit late. So we kind of even though that we fix all the bugs we know, so we think that it might be good for more testing, especially there are so many different configurations on Windows servers, especially people maybe have two different ways, multiple ways of configure the 2FA. Yeah. So in a way is I would suggest you try to use it and on the stage machine first. And if you encounter any problem, please feel free let us know. Thank you.
And just a follow-up, someone has asked will we have Open Directory available on Ubuntu as well?
We don't plan to have an Open Directory on Ubuntu. If you want, if you really need it, you can install Open Directory. However, right now, actually, we kind of try to save people's effort, so you don't need to join your Ubuntu machine to the Active Directory. I think whoever tried that before probably know if that could be could be take hours or days to make it work, especially when Microsoft have a new update or patch. So right now we don't plan to do that. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Wade. Next question is for Lucy, and that is, Will we continue to have FileMaker Server available for Mac OS?
All right. So FileMaker Server 2023 runs on Mac OS today, and we will continue to release FileMaker Server on Mac OS in the future. The key tip here is you can run Ubuntu version of FileMaker Server with Apple M2 hardware. Our test lab has seen really good performance. It's good on the Mac already, and plus the Ubuntu version is impressive. Today, FileMaker 2023 runs on Mac, Windows, Linux Ubuntu 20, and 22. Back to you, Rosemary.
Okay, and next, a couple questions about Java for, I guess, James. So first, why did we choose Java 17 when it's been superseded by Java 20?
Well, yeah, as the answer also states there, so Java 17 is the latest long-term support version. Per Oracle, Java 20 will not be a long-term support version. Actually, will be superseded in the next 6 months. So 17 should be supported for at least until 2029. So that's why we want 17 for now.
Yeah, and then a follow-up, why does FileMaker Server even require Java at all? There was a intention stated a few years ago at DevCon to remove that dependency entirely.
So I can't comment on that statement. I wasn't actually. I've never been to DevCon before, but WebDirect does rely heavily on Java. So for WebDirect to work, we will need Java. At this time, I'm not aware of a WebDirect replacement that would be releasing time soon. If anyone else has any comment on that, but yeah, we definitely need Java for WebDirect. But that I think before we had Java was needed for the admin console, but that's been removed a long time ago.
I'm just watching questions come in fast and furious here. I guess this one for Han. Does SendMail with OAuth 2 support HTML or other formatted email and attachments?
Yeah, attachments should be working as before, but for formatted as HTML, this is something we don't support at this moment, because the APIs on the provider side don't support it, so we're not supported at this point.
Okay, thank you. And I'm just scanning. I don't see a lot of new questions. Here's one for Parker. For data for the Java garbage collection, do you need JDK or JRE? Just to clarify that one more time.
Yeah, just to clarify, yeah. So for the Java garbage collection feature to work, you do need to use the JDK. If you use the JRE, your schedule will report an error, and you can't run it manually either. So yeah, you definitely need the JDK for that script to be executed.
It appears that maybe all we have. And I think with that, we're going to wrap it up. And again, thank you everyone for attending tonight. And we hope to see you on a future webinar. Last request, or just a reminder, as I said earlier, you can always find the engineering blogs, latest entries, the latest release notes, and some other great resources from around the Claris community on the Claris community homepage. And feel free to reach out directly to me if you see a topic for an engineering blog. I'm happy to pass those great topic ideas from the community along to the team. So I hope to see you at a future webinar or maybe in person in February at Claris Engage.